Welcome to the Soft Life with Sadie Baddies. Sadie Baddies is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Adjaman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the Soft Life podcast. So today we have the pleasure of speaking to Mecole Hayes, also known as MeMe. MeMe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So, for those who are new here, Mecole, also known as MeMe, has captivated fans with her hilarious rants and her unforgettable glam on the landmark 25th season of the show Big Brother that we all love. But as you'll find out today, MeMe is not just a funny and glamorous house guest. She is also a political consultant with a deep commitment to public service. MeMe strives to bridge the gap between politicians and the communities that they represent, and she draws from her experience working in the U.S. House of Representatives. So welcome, MeMe. I'm so excited to have you and to talk to you on the show today. How are you feeling?
I am feeling super blessed and just like super grateful right now. I think the year for me started off just in a bit of a weird space. I had like a little bit of a health scare and just trying to
Oh,
find my footing into
yeah.
this year. So now that everything is like settled, I am feeling super inspired and just like super blessed and grateful to be here. So
I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm hoping that everything turned out okay with you and your health, of course. And I'm glad that you're bringing in an optimistic approach to the new year because I think we all need that a little bit.
amen.
So I know that you mentioned that you are kind of moving with more of an inspiring mindset for the new year, but can you describe how you're feeling in this very moment? Like, what's your vibe? What's the setting for you right now?
Right now, my vibe is really leaning into my softness. To me, that really means just like leaning into safety and stability and just like being as carefree as possible in regard to all of the things that don't matter. Like, that is my main focus right now. So, I really want to lean into that because the world is just so heavy and there are just so many
Yeah.
things happening, and I just really want to lean into being soft. Like, let's bring more softness into the world.
I mean, what better way to do that than to be on the Softlight Pod? So we're so we're so excited to talk to you, and I love that you're bringing in intentionally softness and compassion to yourself. Love that so much. So for people who may not be familiar about your origin story, where you're from, your background, kind of like the who's who in a nutshell of who you are. Can you share with us your origin story in your own words?
Of course. So I am a Midwest girl. I'm born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. And I know that there are probably a couple people listening to this, like, where the heck is that? But if you've ever listened to hip hop icon Nelly and he had you stuffing in your Air Force One, or you know who the basketball star Tatum is, that you know a little bit about St. Louis. So I'm an only
Yes.
child by a single mother. So I grew up very spoiled. There were very few things that my mother wouldn't allow me to have, but I was so blessed to be raised by a mom who poured into me endlessly. She allowed me and encouraged me to explore all of my passions and interests at such a young age. She taught me how to be confident and taught me about the importance of independence and the value of that, right? And so when I think about my upbringing and the origin of my life, a lot of that centers around my mother and who she was to me and who she continues to be in my life. So
Mm, I love that. I love that your earliest memories is of your mom pouring into you. Like that is so beautiful. And I think a lot of us, in retrospect, we think about the people who poured into us in our lives. And for some people, it wasn't their parents or their mother, their father, or their parental figures in their lives. And I love that you can still look back and think about how growing up, she was a person that instilled confidence in you. So I love hearing that, especially for Black women. So, sometimes that's not the case for us, but I love to hear that that's such a big part of your upbringing.
Absolutely.
So we know that you are a political consultant and you also are a house guest. You were a house guest on Big Brother.
Yep.
How did that journey start? How did you go from merging these two very different worlds? And can you tell us a little bit more about how you ended up on being on Big Brother, but also your journey as a political consultant?
Absolutely. So I started my career in politics and working on Capitol Hill at just 21 years old. I was fresh out of college. I had a bachelor's degree in journalism, and I was thinking that I was going to be a CNN reporter. I had uprooted my life. I moved to Atlanta, hoping to land a job or an internship with CNN, but instead I was offered an internship in Washington D.C. doing some press work on Capitol Hill for members of Congress, and I accepted it. I had just graduated. I was broke. I didn't have any work experience. I was like, hey, if they're going to allow me to come and live in DC, they're going to pay me for this internship. Let me kind of, go through all of the things that I need to learn how to navigate the political landscape. Then, this is a wonderful and unique opportunity. And I am so glad that I recognized it as that, because that internship literally changed my life and jump started my career.
Mm.
I went from being an intern to spending 5.5 years working in politics on Capitol Hill for a member of Congress. And I've done just about every single job that you can think of. I've been a staff assistant, I've been a press assistant, I've analyzed federal policy, I've drafted federal policy. And, it was about 5 years into my career that I just kind of stopped and look around and realized that, one, I was overworked and underpaid. And two, while I love this work deeply and with everything in me, I was pouring so much into the work that was not pouring back into me. So I decided
Mm.
needed a change of pace and a change of responsibility. So I applied to compete on my favorite reality competition show, honestly, with no expectations. I literally did not expect them to call back. I was like, I'm never going to go. I will be stuck in this cubicle, be stuck in this office for the rest of my life. And ultimately, I was casted. And I'll be honest with you, it is still a little bizarre seeing where my life is now versus where it was a year ago. It has been more than anything that I could have imagined. But I'm so, so happy that I was able to take that leap of faith.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think that is such a unique story. And I don't know how many people can say that they've had a similar experience. So I love hearing about your journey and how you listened to yourself and decided, hey, there has to be something more for me, whether it's going a completely different route and trying something new or continuing down this path that it's like, kind of unpredictable when in terms of your career trajectory. But I'm so glad that you listened to your voice and decided to
Thanks.
take that leap of faith. Um, can you share more about your, balancing the persona that you have being a reality TV star and then balancing that persona of being very much a professional, being in this very high level space as a career and in political consultancy?
So before going on to the show, I was very particular about keeping my career a secret. In fact, in the house, I told all of the rest of the house guests that I was a teacher as opposed to a political consultant, because I
Mm,
understand that politics can be very controversial and honestly sometimes even volatile. So when I'm doing work in entertainment, I like to keep my political work separate. And then on the flip
mm,
side, when I am navigating government agencies or working with political figures, I never even mention that I've appeared on a show or do work in entertainment, because there aren't many of us doing this work in these type of spaces. So for me, at minimum, I just want to be taken seriously, and at maximum, I don't want my adjacency to the world of entertainment to take away from the seriousness and the importance of the work that we do in politics. So I think that, setting and establishing healthy boundaries really do play an important role in how I'm able to navigate the two worlds.
mm. And what are some of the situations or instances where you felt like that crossroads of having this background of, being in the politics and just professional world and merging it with this really kind of newfound publicity and fame of being in the entertainment industry as a reality TV star? Were there instances or moments where you were like, almost felt like a Hannah Montana situation? Like, were there moments where you're like, this feels like a crossover episode of my own life?
Oh my God. Yes, all the time, especially when I came back from the show after being evicted. I was there for 65 days. So I don't know how much everyone knows about the show, but the
Hmm.
premise is that you take about a dozen or so strangers from different parts of the country, you place them in one house, and you have them compete against one another for a chance at $750,000. But they're doing that while being cut off from the entire world. So there are no cell phones,
Hmm.
there are no televisions, there are no, calls or letters homes, or, just check-ins to say, hey, I'm still alive, I'm good. Like, there is no contact with the outside world. So when you come out, you really are like kind of shell shocked and culture shocked to kind of reassimilate yourself
Yeah.
back into society after being cut off from it for so long. And I think the part that I kind of forgot was that while I wasn't able to see or talk to anyone, everyone was able to see me and to watch
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
called the live that are go on for 24 hours. So I come
Yeah.
out and I want to get back to work. And now I have people who used to be my colleagues, they're fans of mine now, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
watch the show and they're fans of the gameplay or the strategy or just the personality that you bring in the house. So when you're going to talk about something as serious as, a K through 12 policy that is looking to make public education more equitable for students across the country, and you're sitting across with someone who's a fan of yours, or maybe someone who may not be a fan, right? Maybe you've said or
Hmm.
done something that they don't agree with, and they're just kind of like, but that thing that you said, or, why didn't you do this on the show? And you're like, but I'm here for
Yeah.
this thing. This is very
Right.
serious work. So I always
Yeah.
have to make sure that I go in these conversations when I notice that something like this is happening, say, hey, I would love to have this conversation offline, but while we're here, like, let's focus on the task at hand because this is
Yeah.
right.
Right, for sure. And I'm sure that's, such a big practice in boundary setting
Oh
and
yeah.
having to set those, like, professional but also social boundaries where people, we have this world where we live in where there's a lot of parasocial relationships. So people might think that they know you based off of what they see on TV, but it's like, you don't actually know me. And has it been challenging having to create those boundaries in a professional setting where, you might have been a little bit more open to sharing things with people, but now that they've kind of peeked into that world, you're kind of like, hey, actually that's not okay. And I ask that because I think regardless if we've been experienced with being on reality TV or being having this like publicity, I think a lot of us can learn just how to set better boundaries in general. So if you could share, I think it'd be really insightful.
Absolutely. So for me, in the workplace, I think once you kind of realize that the conversation is steering in the different direction, you always want to recenter and rebalance to what the main goal is. I find it a
Yeah.
lot harder to do on social media because, again, you have these 24-hour live feeds where me being in the house for 65 days, for 65 days of my life, for 65 days of someone else's life, they have been able to watch me for 24 hours a day, like a Sims character, right? They can see me wake up, they can see me brush my teeth,
Yeah.
dinner, they see me, when I'm upset or when I have an argument with someone or when I'm super happy because I've won something or whatever it is. You see and experience all of these moments with me, to your point, in a parasocial way. So now that I'm out, there is still so much craving for a insight into what my life
Yeah.
now that I'm home, right? Like, we know what your life
Yeah.
was when you were in your brother house, but what do you do on a day to day with your husband, right? Like, what do you do every
Yeah.
morning? Care to walk your dog in the morning? Are you still eating the same things for breakfast at your house that you were in the big brother house? And it's so
Yeah.
hard because people become fans of you, and they give you so much love and so much support because they had that access to you, because you had a certain level of visibility, and in some cases they want you to maintain that, but the reality of it is that it's not sustainable. We can't
Yeah.
share all parts of our lives all of the time. We have to keep some things private and keep some things sacred for our own insanity. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still fighting to find that balance. But I do try to set as many boundaries as possible in terms of how I interact and how I navigate the fans and what it is that I share now that I'm back home.
I hear that. I really do. And I think, you know, creating those boundaries and being intentional and selective about who has access to you after being in the public eye is really difficult. And I think as we continue to be in this like digital age where for some people it may not be reality TV, for some people it might be TikTok, it might be your YouTube channel where you share, your vlogs or your daily life. How do you kind of reconcile with being a public figure, however scale it might be, and also maintaining your peace and your boundaries? So I think there's a lot to learn there from just the stories that you shared of people wanting to know what you're eating for breakfast now to,
Yes.
people asking you very deeply personal questions, but you still maintaining your privacy and your, like you said, keeping things sacred. I think that's so important. So really appreciate you sharing that. So let's backtrack a little bit about your life and your career as a political consultant. Can you share some of the instances or circumstances where you felt like you were dealing with imposter syndrome? And for anyone listening who may not be familiar with imposter syndrome is this phenomenon that happens when you feel like you're a fraud or you feel uncomfortable in rooms which you're unfamiliar with, whether that be for a reason from your gender to your race to your socioeconomic status. So, if you grew up as someone that didn't have a lot of resources or lower income, and then you start going to this predominantly white institution, or you're working this job in tech where you just don't see people that look like you can start to feel like you don't belong there. So can you share with us how your experience has been with imposter syndrome in your professional career, and also maybe even during your big brother experience?
Girl, imposter syndrome had me so cold for all of my 20s. Like, me and imposter syndrome will forever be beefing because listen, it can really take a hold on you. I
Yeah.
started Capitol Hill in 2016, when there was still so much room for improvement in terms of the makeup of the workforce. This was before the DEI initiatives and the
Hmm.
50% pledges. At that time, I was the only person of color who was working in my office. And I remember this instance during the first few weeks when I was there. I was asked to write a press release as if I'd attended an Ivy League school as opposed to an HBCU. Now, I
Oh,
was so taken aback by
wow.
this, and it was such a profound statement that has such a
Yeah.
lasting impact on me, because it made me question everything that I did there on out, right? I was always
Yeah.
questioning, second guessing, and always wondering if I was in the right place and if I were doing the right things. And I start to question things that had nothing to do with my work, right? So it starts to go beyond the work. Now I'm questioning the way that I talk and the way that my hair
Hmm.
looks. How long are my nails? And, did I sound
Yeah.
too country when I said this thing? Was I using slang when I said that? Was I speaking appropriately when
Yeah.
I did that? And, even down to the way you respond to emails, right? Or how quick you
Oh
respond
my
to emails
gosh. Yes.
are, like, they all become such, such a important piece of who you are. And I think after
Yeah.
so much of questioning myself and feeling like an outsider, I felt like I needed a mentor. So I sought
Mm.
out another woman of color who'd also been working in politics and doing policy work for a lot longer than I have. And I really leaned on and really leaned into her expertise and her advice and her knowledge, because I needed that. I think my
Yeah.
biggest takeaway at that time was that I tried to do so much alone, and I can't do it alone. I wasn't
Yeah.
equipped enough to do alone what it was that I was set out to do, which was do this policy work and still show up as the most authentic version of myself. There was no blueprint for me for doing that. I'm a first generation college graduate, right? I'm working in politics for the first time. I don't even know if my mom is a Republican or Democrat growing up, because politics is not something that is, well discussed in African American communities a lot of times. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
navigating a lot of first for the first time, and I'm trying to do it alone. So I sought
Mm.
out help. And that's my biggest piece of advice. If you're dealing with imposter syndrome, sometimes it's not even the people who are around you that are the ones that are going to be poured into you. It's the people outside of those spaces that you really need to seek out, who understand who you are, who you can trust with your feelings in an authentic way, and who you can really depend and lean on to share their knowledge and expertise in a way that is not judgmental, or a way that is not shaming, or a way that is not out of date and out of range with how you actually need to navigate the space that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that insight and really breaking down how imposter syndrome, sometimes you need to go outside of yourself, right? You cannot always try to look within, especially when you have this kind of uh shaky sense of self-worth, or this shaky self-esteem. It's going to be so much harder to try to pull out that, confidence or that self-assurance when you're not feeling it and you're trying to kind of force it to happen. Whereas if you do seek out a mentor like you shared, it's so much easier to have that light poured back into you. So I'm so glad that you did go through that journey of seeking out a mentor. And can you share how you went about finding mentorship? Because that is something that I've been seeing so much online. The girls want to know, how do I get a mentor? How do I get a sponsor at work? How do I get someone who's going to advocate for me? And I would love to hear your experience about actually finding a mentor and when you really needed it the most.
Yeah, it started with just, putting fillers out there, right? Seeing other women, older women, women of color in the workplace, and, admiring from afar the work that they do, right? Again, it's not
Hmm.
many of us that work in this space. And then just sending a simple email, or, going to the office and saying, hey, it's such and such here. I would love to have a conversation with her. She has a few minutes. Can you put me on our calendar? Or, I'd love to do a 10 or 15-minute coffee date or a lunch date, and then sitting down with people and telling them exactly what you need. Because the reality is, especially in corporate spaces, we're all busy, right? We all have
Yeah.
so responsibilities, not to just do in the workplace, but also in on the home front. There's so many things that we have to do. So sometimes it's just about telling people what exactly it is that you need from them. I found this woman who still has such a profound impact on my life, and I found her email address. I sent her an email and I said, hey, I would love to talk to you about XYZ, XYZ. I'm really struggling with this, and I see that you are such a well respected, well sought after voice in this space. And I would love to learn how you do it. I would love
Mm,
for you to teach me your ways. And literally, that's all it took. I sent a cold email to this woman. I never met her before a day in my life. I just seen her in passing. I don't even know if she even knew who I was, but I knew who she was. And by me being proactive and reaching out, she was someone who still to this day continues to pour into me, and no longer just about work, about real life things, right?
yeah.
About now a wife, and
Yeah.
eventually that next step into motherhood, all of these
Yeah.
things that I don't know that I'll be experiencing for the first time. I can seek out some advice and some assistance and some help for women who've been there. And I think sometimes for us, we like to lean on our mothers and our aunts and people who are
Yeah.
within our immediate families, but we forget that they know us and they love us so deeply that it's
Yeah.
sometimes them to be objective in the way that
Yeah.
they guide through this life, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you just need someone who's going to be objective, someone who has, no stake in this game, no, someone who does not gain anything from your success or from your failures, who's able to pour into you and support you in a way that you need it.
Ooh, that's a bar.
Yeah.
That's I love that so much. No, truly, because I have been noticing so many of my peers, so many Black women, and just people in general that are seeking mentorship, but they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't want to come across as too aggressive or too upfront. But I actually kind of love that you were so direct and saying like, hey, I want to learn from you. And I think that's also the difference between feeling like an opportunist and being a student, right? Is like the eagerness to learn and not it being this like super transactional kind of exchange of, oh, well, I'm going to put time in your calendar and you're going to do this for me. It's like, no, I actually want to learn and grow. And I love that your mentor is still involved in your life and helping you through these next stages of your life on a personal level. That is so beautiful and inspiring. And this is your sign to get a mentor, y'all. I'm telling you.
Yes, it's
It's,
fine. I wish mentors on all of the girls because I'm telling you, it
yeah,
is a changing experience to have someone in your corner who wants nothing but the best from you and is willing to pour into you as you grow and as you continue to become the woman that you're trying to be. You need someone
yeah.
who's willing. It is so important. I can't stress it enough.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. And I would love to, think about kind of what your relationship is to social media today. You know, pre Big Brother, post Big Brother, but also just in general. I think social media is changing. I mean, it literally is changing right before our eyes. But what is your relationship to social media today? Are you someone that creates boundaries by, not allowing everyone to message you, or being very careful of who you follow or what your feed looks like? Or are you someone that even has to limit your time on social media because of maybe the influx of questions and comments and engagement that you might get? What's your relationship like with social media today?
One of my biggest boundaries when it comes to social media is to make sure that I am not picking up that phone and checking any app the first thing in the morning. I need
Mm,
intentional about the way that I start my day. I need to wake up. I need to get myself together. I need to do some manifesting. I need to pray. I need to be intentional about the way that I start my day because it
yeah,
sets the tone for the rest of my day. And if I'm
yeah,
checking social media as soon as I wake up to see what people are saying, did I get this many likes? Did I get this many shares? Like, how well did this perform? It throws me off because now the rest of my day is contingent on how well I performed or didn't perform on social media because I'm thinking about that next post or that next video or that next thing that gets me to, whatever metric it is that I need to say that I was
right.
successful, for this quarter. But I will say this. I think that we all do ourselves a disservice if we are not using social media as a business and as a platform for storytelling. Like even just I know you've
Mm.
probably seen in the last couple of days, there's been like a 50-part story that's
Yes.
gone viral on TikTok
Yes.
about a woman,
Yes.
her relationship, her marriage, and what happened.
Yeah.
And, regardless of how anyone feels about the story, it really tells us that the power of storytelling is so important. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are now engaged with this woman and who want to do business with her because she was vulnerable enough to share the things that we never want to put out in
Hmm.
public. She
Yeah.
shared the story that we oftentimes say, I'm taking this to my grave. I'm only telling my mama. I'm only telling my grandma. I'm only telling my
Yeah.
best friend. I will never tell anyone how I decided to take a leap of faith or decided to do something that scared me
Hmm.
and I failed, right? So
Yeah.
using these stories sometimes can be the things that inspire the next generation coming after you or inspire
Yeah.
women or looking up to you. So that's what I try to use my platform for now. Obviously, it's a
Yeah.
place of businesses. I've started to gain such a following after coming out of the show and being able to now collaborate with brands that I love and that I trust and that I've been a consumer of for such a long time. It's such a cool experience, but it's also very important for me to use my knowledge
Yeah.
to elevate stories and elevate issues that oftentimes are swept under the rug or oftentimes just don't have the opportunity to be as visible, like
Yeah.
improving the quality of K through 12 education or ensuring that all students have access to healthy school meals. Those are also
Hmm.
things that I care about. So using my
Yeah.
platform to raise awareness and visibility on these issues is just as important as having an aesthetic feed or
Yeah.
having a bunch of shares and a bunch of views on my reels and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm hearing just like this thread throughout all of your different stories is about setting intentions and being very intentional about how you not only do your day to day, but these decisions and these risks that you might take, whether it's going through a different career journey or trying something, a completely different challenge that you would have never guessed. But again, like being intentional about how you use social media, and it's getting this social media now is getting this kind of bad rep that it's causing brain rot, and it's like people are like getting becoming less intellectually stimulated because of social media and all these things. But like you said, you can use it for good. Like some of the work, some of your political work with advocating for youth in schools and creating more equitable environments for young folks to thrive, and having healthy meals and a plethora of other really important issues. You're using your social media platform for a positive change, and I think that's what we have to remember, is that we don't have to make this like terrible monster that's like ruining our lives and ruining our self-esteem. Like at the end of the day, these are apps that we can
Yeah,
put down. They're apps that we
and
can delete,
they are
and they're
free.
free.
Like no one is being, in a lot of cases, no one is being paid to sign up for it.
Exactly.
A lot of people aren't being paid
Exactly.
to share content. And I think the biggest takeaway, especially for any of the young listeners, is you should only believe 1% of what it is that you see on social media. Everybody is not as rich,
Yeah.
not it like it's just not possible for us to all
Yeah.
be at one level. So a lot of what young
Yeah.
people are striving for is a facade.
Yeah.
Live in the things that excite you. Do the things that bring you joy. Share the content that makes you feel good, or share the content that you're looking for that nobody else is providing. And I promise that you will have so much more fun on social media. So much more fun.
Yes, that is so true. I could not agree more. Could not agree more. So Mimi, we want to also know, with you having experience, being on reality TV, what are some of the what is some of the stigma that you feel is attached to being a reality TV star? Because we're seeing from all these different shows, whether it's Love is Blind, Real Housewives, like all the shows, we're seeing a lot of different we're seeing a lot of different outcomes. Some people are, really using it to their advantage, and they're creating new career opportunities for themselves. Some people are really struggling to come back into normal, quote unquote life, and reintegrating into what they knew before they started, their reality TV experience. But what's some of the stigma attached, and what are ways that you have tried to destigmatize some of those notions?
Reality television thrives on conflict and chaos. And without it, some may argue that TV is just not as interesting. And there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stigma, I think, especially for women of color, because historically we're seen as the most entertaining version of ourselves when we are loud in arguments, when we're throwing things across the room, or just acting a complete fool. And I do think that sometimes that's the expectation, right? Like you cast certain stereotypes for certain outcomes that you want, which is why for me it was so important for me to play the game of Big Brother with a level head and from a very logical standpoint, because that's when I feel the most in control of my brand and how I'm being perceived. At the end of
Mm,
the nobody is making you do anything when you go on any of these shows, at least in my experience, right? Like I
yeah.
know a lot of people are things scripted, or this is too good or too crazy to be true, so this has to be, in my experience, none of it was scripted. If people acted a fool, they did it on their own volition, or if they didn't act a fool, it was all up to them, right? And
Yeah.
so, I think that it is up to you to decide whether or not you want to play into these stereotypes, or whether or
Hmm.
not you want to set a new perception for how people that may look like you or come from where you from are being perceived on reality television. And that's just not for women of color. That's for anyone, right? Because on my
Yeah.
season of Big Brother, I was playing with the first deaf or hard of hearing contestant to ever play in the franchise was on my season, right? The first Punjabi Indian man that had ever played in the franchise was also on my season, right? And you had
Mhm.
players that were well into their 40s and 50s and 60s who were playing. You had some players that were 21. So just a hugely diverse group of individuals being able to play this game together and trying to navigate
Mhm.
the game together is super important. And I think that when we think about stereotypes, especially when it comes to Black women, oftentimes you are, the angry Black woman if you aren't able to control yourself, right? If you get into an argument or you get a little loud or you're a little passionate about the things that you say, sometimes it can be taken out of context. And I don't even
Yeah.
think often it's with the networks. I think a lot of times it's with the fans, right? The fans are the
Yeah.
ones who say whether or not a show is good or whether or not it's entertaining. The network doesn't really get to decide that. It really is the fans. And so you just have to be very mindful about what you want your experience on a reality television show to be and what you want your perception to be once you come off of that show, because you can't live on that season forever. I can't live in the Big Brother house
Yeah.
forever. At some point, I come back into the real world. I have to work a real job and do real things. I don't get to
Yeah.
play this for the rest of my life. So I need to decide how I want people to perceive me when the show is aired 20 years from now and 50 years from now. Am I proud of how I came across? And for me, yes.
Yes. Ooh. I mean, not everyone can say that. So
Yeah,
I think
it was hard, girl. I had so many moments where I just wanted to, it's hard. It's hard.
yeah, yeah,
Hard having control in an environment where you have no control. Your
yeah.
fate and the left up to so many other people and so many other variables, but the only thing that you can control is yourself and what comes out of your mouth and how you treat the next person. And because I was in control of those things, those are the things that I wanted people to walk away with positive and memorable experiences with for me.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I just think it's so interesting and so unique the way that, you have been able to bounce, I would say in a way almost bounce back from being in this like this microcosm, which is,
Yeah.
the show that you're on or the experience that you had. And I think for some of us that, whether it's through social media fame or being on TV or anything that really makes you very visible to the public eye, it can be really hard to integrate back into what your routines are and your community, your family. But you've done it so seamlessly, and I think a lot of people could take notes, honestly,
I just
because
struggle. It's every single day for
yeah.
me. I left the house 5 weeks after my wedding. 5 weeks after getting,
Mm,
I went into the house and I
yeah,
was for, well over 80 days. So it's an
yeah,
adjustment every single day, but it's about being intentional in
yeah,
how I show up now that I'm back in the real world, how I show up for myself, how I show up for my husband, how I show up for, my family and friends who were all, just as
yeah.
disconnected during that time as I was from them. It's all about being intentional.
Absolutely. And looking back on your experience and your experiences through your, political journey, your career, your personal life, your experience on reality TV, what advice would you give to other people who are trying to navigate multiple, professional roles or career transitions based off of your story?
The best advice that I can give is to save your money. And I don't mean a great fund, okay? I mean I might want to do something else different for a couple months. So let me put some money to the side fund. And I promise you that will save you a lot of headache, because I don't know about y'all, but financial stability is one of the
Yeah,
most important aspects of being an adult. I don't care what anybody tells you, financial stability is such an important factor. And then I'd say, give yourself permission to do the things that scare you the most. For me,
yeah,
I almost talked myself out of submitting my audition tape because I was so concerned with what my job would think, what my family and friends would think, what the general public would think, the kids I went to high school with, and, the girl that bullied me in the second grade or whatever it is. Like, what do, all of these people make up who you are.
yeah,
What will about me if I set out to do something in front of the whole world and I fail? And
yeah,
I am so glad that I did not talk myself out of an opportunity or out of a blessing because of fear. When I look
Mm,
back at my life, I think that my experiences are a culmination of me stepping out on faith and taking leaps of faith. And I was always successful when I've done those things. They were scary, and I didn't always
mhm,
experience immediate success. But eventually I experienced success because I did the things that scare me the most. So if anyone is thinking about doing any type of career transition, if you want to work in entertainment, if you want to do anything that you're not currently doing, I say save your money and give yourself a cushion, and then give
mhm.
yourself permission to explore and to be scared and to really step out on faith.
Love that. That is really, really sound advice. And I really appreciate, all of your honesty and just being so open and sharing your story. Um, as you know, with every guest, we do a little rapid fire session at the end of every episode. So we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions. And yeah, just answer the first thing that comes on your mind. There's no right or
Okay,
wrong answers. But you ready?
yeah, I'm ready. I think so.
Okay. So, okay. First question is, we know that you are recently married, and of course, congratulations again.
Thank
How would you describe this new chapter of being a wife and being newly married in 3 words? How would you
Oh,
summarize this?
3 words. Oh, I'm gonna say just do it. I'm the 2024 Nike slogan, just do it, are the 3 words that I would summarize this chapter as. Just do it.
I love it. I love it. Um, okay, next question. What is the number one lesson that you learned from being on Big Brother? If you had one
Oh,
main takeaway, what would it be?
girl, so many lessons. If I could go back and do some things differently, I would. I needed that money. It. I think the biggest lesson for me is that I don't always have to be in control. I am a type A personality, and I thrive or feel like I do best when I have control of my situation or my environments. And
Mm-hmm.
spending 65 Big Brother house so many times and moments where I was not in control. And I survived. I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
still here. The world did not end. And so sometimes you just need to let go and to delegate, or just to be free of these faux responsibilities that you give yourself that are not as important as we make them to be. So I don't always have to be in control is probably my biggest takeaway.
Ooh, I love that. As someone that's also releasing that need for control, I think I needed to hear that too. So I appreciate you saying that. Next question for you is, what are your 3 go-to self-care practices when you need a little pick me up?
Oh, that's easy. First, I need a trip to the hair salon. I need a mani pedi, and then I need a 90-minute Swedish massage, okay? Or deep tissue, whatever you got on the menu, give it to me for 90 minutes, and I promise you I'm a new woman. Those are the three
Yes.
non-negotiables of my monthly self-care routine. If I don't have those, I'm no good. I'm no good.
Ooh, I love that. I love that this is monthly too, because I think sometimes we forget that the self care is not indulgent. It's literally for your mind, body, and soul. So, by all means, yeah, that's beautiful maintenance. I love it.
Like every 30 days, like clockwork. The masseuse
Yes.
is probably go ahead. I just need her to move in with me at this point. Just come on, sis. Come move in. I'll be
Yep.
okay. Big happy.
Spare room in the back, girl. You got it. I love
That's
that. I love that. Um, so if you had to name this chapter of your life, what would you call it?
thriving. I will
Ooh, yes.
chapter thriving. I was married about 7 months ago. I turned 30 years old about 7 months ago. So, I feel as much of a grown woman as I've ever had. I am so much
Yes.
confident in who I am as a woman. I'm so much more comfortable in my skin and with all of my flaws and all of my shortcomings. And it is the best feeling in the world. I feel like I have all of the tools and all of the information and all of the access to knowledge that I need in order to be the best version of myself. So I really feel like I'm thriving in this chapter of my life, and I love it so much.
I love that for you. That is amazing. And I am confident that there are so many more blessings and beautiful opportunities blossoming your way. So we will be here to cheer you on and root for you as you go through that and share all of the beautiful, blessings that are coming, especially in 2024.
And
Um,
likewise,
Thank you. Thank you, sis. And our last question for you is, what does softness mean to you as a Black woman?
ooh, softness to me means safety, stability, and support. I feel like for historically, Black women have always fought for these three things, and we have
Hmm.
not been able to navigate as the best version of ourselves because we were always seeking out safety and security and stability and comfort and partnership. And having those three things really allows me to really lean into softness, lean into my femininity, lean into the woman that I always imagine myself being at this age. And I feel so blessed and so honored and so grateful that God saw fit to provide these things to me at this stage in my life and in my career, because they have helped me more than any other thing that I can attribute my success to. So yeah, I definitely have to say those three.
Thank you so much, Mimi. I really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your story. Can you please share where our lovely listeners can reach you and keep up with your day to day?
Of course, I would love for you all to follow along with my journey on Instagram. I am at MEME_Hayes, HAYES. And if you're due for a good laugh and you like to laugh and kiki a little bit, make sure you follow me on Twitter. That's at Mimi.HAYESS. Oh my God, y'all, I cut up so much and have so on Twitter. Girl, you just have to be there. Like, come join me in the madness.
Okay, that's where the party is. Okay. We're gonna
Yeah,
we're
Twitter
gonna
party.
I love Twitter. Honestly, it's still one of the I in my opinion one of my favorite apps, and it will always be where I go. If I want to laugh, I will go there. So we will be finding you and we'll join the party. But thank you so much, Mimi. It was such a pleasure having you on the Soft Life, and we cannot wait to see what you're up to and stay in touch and stay soft.
So much, Priscilla. Talk soon.
To stay connected, join Sadie Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on SaddieBaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love and stay soft, baddie.